All right. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the FF Face Off, part of the Face Off Sports Network. Today we are coming at you with some fantasy football sleepers, mainly the guys that are outside of that top 100. So when you get to your drafts, if you're looking for that gem at the end, this might give you some insight, might help you out here. So, tell you right now, also, before we get into things, if you are watching on YouTube, please feel free to subscribe, hit the bell icon, be notified every single time that we go live. And of course, visit fffaceoff.com for all your fantasy football and sports betting needs. We are cranking out content left and right. You've noticed the YouTube channel has been very, very busy. Well, so too is the website. So hop on over there and check out what we got cooking. My name is Michael Hoff. You can follow me on X at the FF Realist. I'm joined by Pete Nova wearing a very wonderful shirt. He can be followed at Supernova38. This is why you need to be subscribed to YouTube. Pete, how's it going?
It's going good. I took your guys' advice and took the hoodie off. I figured I'd go a little festive because I'm in the vacation spirit since I'm leaving on Saturday, so I'm feeling good.
I would have put on my fun shirt.
Well,
you are
Anthony,
not good with
me.
pressure.
Anthony never misses a chance to show his muscles off.
Well,
so
I have a fun shirt like that.
Well, he
we
might
can hold
not
it
be
down.
wearing
Go put it on real quick.
You could do
Maybe,
that. I mean,
maybe.
no one's stopping you. But his shirt might not be fun. His personality might be cranky sometimes, but we still love him. His name is Anthony Servino. He can be followed the real NFL guru. Anthony, how is by you, darling?
I'm doing good. Happy to be here. A lot to talk about. Football season's going to be here before we know it. Not a lot of NFL news, but this time of year, no news is good news. That means no player is getting arrested.
Right?
Right?
Yeah, you know.
Well,
there's
fantasy wise, no. The guy in the Chiefs just got cut for assault.
Well, that was his second arrest, right?
Yeah,
I believe so. Yeah.
I think it was like
I think
they got arrested at the same place too.
They're watching the old like Cowboys of the early '90s documentaries when they were getting arrested, smoking crack, all the fun.
Oh my God, yeah, all of the crack, 1000%.
Pete, that's true.
I know.
Cowboys of the '90s, they were a rock star type of team.
The Dallas Cowboys were getting pulled over down the highway because their bumpers were sparking because they had so much coke in the trunk.
Well, it was
Michael Irvin was probably
had like 300 pounds of weed that one time.
Yes, but hey, listen, it worked. I mean, they won. It worked. So smoke them if you got them. Pun intended. But yeah, all right. So yeah, we're gonna go through these fantasy football sleepers. Yeah, it's actually very nice. And I would also say you guys can ask your questions in the live chat, which is on YouTube. Actually, we do have some breaking news here. There is a sexual assault. The sexual assault lawsuit against Dak Prescott has been dismissed. I don't know when that's from.
Okay, well, that's good.
I remember that. It could have been like early this off season.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's officially been dismissed.
It was a shakedown.
That's
that's
probably what it was.
Busting balls here because
no, dead serious.
I thought you were kidding.
I think the story was it happened outside of a strip club, whatever happened, and it was a type of a shakedown type of thing. That was the early report on it. So now it being dismissed. It was never an issue.
No, because I literally just tweeted the show, and as I tweeted it, I looked at my phone again and saw that right there from Dove Kleinman. So there you go.
Oh, what a guy.
Well, what are you gonna do? He's on my timeline. What are you gonna do?
I heard a report that said he doesn't even run his account anymore.
I heard that as well. He sold it. Good for him. All right. So while he's selling his account, we're going to sell you on some sleepers here that you can pick in your fantasy football drafts or your best ball drafts. I guess we'll get into the first player on our list, that being Courtland Sutton, Broncos wide receiver, currently sitting just outside the top 100. He's the wide receiver 46. Last year in PPR, he was a wide receiver 35. What I thought was interesting looking at Courtland Sutton, in his first 65 games as an NFL player, he had 14 touchdowns. Last season, he had 10. So it's kind of a jump there. So you have to hope that he's going to get the receptions to balance out some potential touchdown regression. The the quarterback position's a huge question mark there in Denver. It was last year, I guess. If you didn't believe in Russell Wilson, it's going to be more so this year, even though Sean Payton thinks that Bo Nix is the second coming of Joe Montana. But Pete, you are the what's that, Anthony? You got
So
something?
does he?
I thought he loved him. I mean, he was all snarky and happy about drafting him, and acted like they got away with something for drafting him. But Pete, I know you are the Broncos guy. We have talked there about some of the Bo Nix has to start right away, this and that, so on and so forth. What are your thoughts there? Courtland Sutton, fantasy football sleeper this year? Yes or no?
Yeah, I mean, I do like Courtland Sutton. If there is a guy that I prefer in this room, it's probably Marvin Mims a little bit later. But the thing with Courtland Sutton is, this Broncos offense is probably going to be playing from behind. Their defense was one of the worst in the NFL last year. It is improved, but you got to assume, they're playing in a division that has probably the worst. They're probably the worst offense in the division, and so they're probably going to be playing from behind. So I assume that there's going to be some volume there. Sutton is, he's going into his second to last year on his deal. He wants a new contract, and guys that want new deals generally have better seasons traditionally. So, maybe that's more motivation for Sutton. I mean, he did have 10 touchdowns last season, and he is a veteran. He is the veteran in this wide receiver room next to Josh Reynolds and Tim Patrick, and he is the proven guy. And so we'll see. I do think it could be a quarterback upgrade just from a standpoint of the quality of the targets that he's getting, and just get the timing, at least it's from a timing standpoint. But you guys may
biggest
laugh.
Fucking homer take ever heard.
No, you guys may laugh. Bo Nix is one of the most accurate quarterbacks, he was actually the most accurate quarterback in college football last year.
Courtland Sutton last year had the 5th best catchable target rate at wide receiver and number 2 in target quality rating.
Okay, when I say quality of targets, maybe I misspoke. What I mean is, when it comes to timing and rhythm, Russ doesn't get the ball on time, so it's tough as a receiver at times because you don't know when the ball's getting there. That's why Jerry Jeudy never had his breakout, because he's a timing receiver and he never got it. So I don't know. Like I said,
Jeudy
I'm not really
sucks, but whatever.
Well, I'm not necessarily high on Courtland Sutton. I like Mims if I'm taking a guy in this offense. It's going to be one of the lowest passing volume offenses and one of the lowest scoring offenses in the league. So I'm not going to draft the guy high. He's going outside the top 100, but I prefer Mims if I'm taking a shot on one of the receivers in this room.
All right. And then, by the way, you mentioned Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy last year had, an 18% target share. So that is now out the window and off to Cleveland. So, Anthony, what says you? Courtland Sutton, can he eat into those Jerry Jeudy targets? Are you in on the timing? I don't think you are. I'm not either.
I mean, the price is right on Courtland Sutton in terms of ADP and what we have to pay for a team's number 1 wide receiver. The problem with Courtland Sutton is he's never drawn more than 126 targets in the season. He did that in 2019. He had 109 back in 2022. Last year, he had 90. So this isn't a very high volume player. I don't love the quarterback room right now. I don't love the 10 touchdowns last year because in his career, his biggest years were 6 and 4 back in 2018 and 2019. And I think that's more of an outlier type of season. I will take some shares of Courtland Sutton, but it's all about price. It's all about being a dart throw at this point. He's a high floor player. The good thing about Sutton is that back-to-back years, he has had at least 10 PPR points per game in these seasons with Sean Payton there. I don't hate it. But are we ever going to see any type of a ceiling from Courtland Sutton? And that's my biggest worry here. But again, at cost, I don't mind taking him, right? Like we can do a lot worse of where he's going at ADP right now. If you look at the other guys going around him, Kendre Miller at running back, I would probably take him over Courtland Sutton because there's some untapped potential there. Perhaps. But in terms of the wide receiver position, I'll probably take Courtland Sutton over Tyler Lockett. I'll take Courtland Sutton probably over Rashid Shaheed, who's great for best ball for a couple of spike weeks, but is an empty in most other spots. Curtis Samuel, I feel like I already know what he is by now. And I think he's getting overhyped by going to Josh Allen's Bills, who I will take over Courtland Sutton. Going around that price point is Khalil Shakir and probably Brandon Cooks and maybe even Mike Williams, who are going about 15 spots later. I do think those ceilings are higher, but if I need a stability piece, if I need a high floor at this part of the draft, I'll happily take Courtland Sutton.
How did we do a sleeper show, Pete? And I didn't manage to sneak Brandon Cooks in there. I love Brandon Cooks. I have so many best ball shares of Brandon Cooks. All about that Brandon Cooks. Anyway, I like Courtland Sutton. Is a risk? Yes, clearly. There's a reason why he's outside the top 100. And we'll see what happens with the quarterback thing. I think it's a huge wild card. It can either go decent. It could go well, I guess, or it could go just horrifically bad. So we'll find out. Denver should be interesting, but I don't mind taking a stab at Courtland Sutton. And Pete, I don't mind your take about waiting a little bit longer for Denzel Mims either.
I prefer Marvin Mims in this offense. I think he's got big playability. And for Judy's issues, like we saw Marvin Mims break out like in the first 4 games. I mean, he had multiple 100-yard games. So I just think that Sean Payton dialed back the offense for Russell Wilson because whatever power dynamic they had there, and Jerry Jeudy was in the Marvin Mims role. So Mims wasn't on the field much because they ran a lot of 2 wide receiver sets, because they ran a lot of blocking heavy sets. So Albert says, any chance they trade Sutton? I do think there's a chance they trade Sutton, not prior to the season. I think at the deadline, he's going to play on his current situation. Maybe they extend him, but if they don't, he's definitely a guy I could see. They don't want to make the same mistake that they made last year, not trading guys like Jeudy and Simmons at the deadline. And the last thing before we move on, Courtland Sutton did have one of the best calls on the season for one of his touchdowns.
Desde la bolsa, va profundo, touchdown, ahora sí.
Yes, I actually remember that.
Love those international calls.
There you go. We got that going for you.
If you watch more soccer, you'll hear that all the time.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so next we're going to do something that we normally don't do on this show, and that's because they usually don't give us a reason to. We're gonna talk about the Giants a little bit with some sleepers. As Anthony yawns, maybe that's part of the show. Maybe that's part of the show, or maybe just me mentioning the Giants. Maybe it's me mentioning the Giants almost lulled Anthony to sleep. But no, seriously, Devin Singletary is the first New York football Giant that we will talk about. Currently sitting as the RB35. Why do we like Devin Singletary? There's some familiarity there with Brian Daboll, obviously, the Giants head coach back in the Buffalo days. Last year, he finished as the running back 32, 4 rushing touchdowns, no receiving touchdowns. It's all about the opportunity. Saquon Barkley has been well documented. He has jumped ship to the Philadelphia Eagles. Anthony, I will go to you first, even though I apologize. I know Giants talk makes you very sleepy, so just power your way through it.
I'm all right.
You're all right. Okay, you're all right. All right, so what do we make of Devin Singletary? 898 rushing yards last year, 193 receiving. Are we looking, and that, by the way, was with the Texans last year. Are we looking to get that same kind of success with the Giants?
If you call that success, maybe success for Devin Singletary.
Yeah.
Listen, if you need a running back at this juncture of the draft where he's going, I see 106 overall, a 106.8 current ADP. It's actually gone up from 111 at the FFPC. You could do a lot worse, right? Like now, Brian Robinson, who I do like, is going right before Singletary, and I do expect Robinson to not be there, but like I like what Singletary is going to bring to the table over guys like Chase Brown, Jerome Ford, Gus Edwards. Devin Singletary should be the guy, right? He should be the Saquon Barkley of this backfield in terms of getting the opportunity. He's not Saquon Barkley when it comes to skill set. He's not going to give you what Saquon Barkley gave you in those categories. But is he going to be there for goal line situations? Is he going to get most of the carries? Is he going to get those valuable PPR opportunities? Absolutely. So, like, when I say Saquon Barkley, he's going to be the opportunity guy in this backfield. Just don't expect Saquon Barkley production. But I will expect production from Devin Singletary, enough production to where he's going to be a weekly fantasy asset, probably in the flex spot, but still a weekly fantasy asset. He'll bring a high floor to the table. Now, if you go to Devin Singletary, as much work as he had last year, he only gave us 9.8 PPR points a game. But if we dig back to his earlier years, 3 out of his first 4 seasons, he averaged north of 10 PPR points per game. So 3 out of 5 NFL years, he's given us double-digit PPR points. I am more than fine with that. Drafting a guy outside the top 100 who is going to be the lead back. There's guys there. I think there's Eric Gray. There's the rookie they brought in. This should be Singletary's backfield. If you ask me, Brian Daboll's coaching for his job. I don't know, outside of one of these younger backs really taking off in the preseason, I don't know how they're going to take Singletary off the field. He's reliable. He's probably a decent pass blocker, reliable catcher out of the backfield. So, like, this will be the guy. Just don't expect efficiency. Don't expect to get any type of decent efficiency or any type of big runs. Like, that is not Devin Singletary. That is not what he does. Now, last year in Houston, he did have a career high 3 games over 100 rushing yards. But, like, if we go, he only had 3 rushes over 20 yards, which ties a career low. So he is kind of slowing down, but if you give him the volume, he showed us last year that he can give us some big games. And let's face it, that Houston rushing attack, that offensive line was not great for run blocking.
All right.
Yeah.
There you go. And, to Anthony's point, Devin Singletary was one of 2 running backs in the top 35 last year that finished with less than 10 points on a per game basis. Pete, what says you? I know you flashed the comment saying that there are no sleepers with the little giants. That's from Out of Rhythm Fantasy Sports. There's got to be some kind of positivity there with the Giants. Pete, what says you? Is that positivity Devin Singletary?
So I'll be completely blunt. I prefer Tyron Tracy in this room, but if I am making the case for Singletary, he's the less risky guy. He is a Brian Daboll guy. He was in Buffalo from 2019 to 2022, so he was with Daboll for at least 2 or 3 seasons. To his credit, I mean, he averaged 4.6 yards a carry in his whole career, and last year was actually his worst season at 4.2. And on top of that, in the Brian Daboll system, the 41 targets was the lowest amount that he ever had. 41, 50, 50, 52 were 4 years straight before going to the Texans. And he played with a rushing quarterback like Josh Allen. So they're not the most friendly when it comes to dumping the ball off to the running back position. So, he could be a safety valve for this offense. Daniel Jones likes to run, but it's probably not nearly as much as Josh Allen. And this is an offense that's dying for, talent, and he's a veteran. So I think Daboll might lean on the veteran. I do prefer Tyron Tracy later in drafts, but if I was making the case for Singletary, he knows the system, he's comfortable, and honestly, he really has gotten a lot of crap over his career in Buffalo specifically. But when you really look at the numbers, he really hasn't been that bad. To Anthony's point, he's not going to, rip off 20, 30, 40-yard runs because he's not that kind of guy. But he is a stable guy who, he's got a decent average yards per carry, and he can catch the ball out of the backfield. So if you're looking, depending on your team at the time, if you're looking for stability, kind of like the Courtland Sutton argument, this is a guy that has a high floor, just not a high ceiling. So if you need that, he's a guy I would target in my drafts.
Devin Singletary is the missionary sex of the running back position.
Ooh. But sometimes when you need a running back, when you're not drafting a running back, you'll take it. Just like when you need it, you'll take missionary. Sometimes you need that missionary in your life, It's better than nothing at all. So
is, I think you hit the nail on the head right there.
Yeah. There you go. That's what I'm here for. Yeah, and well done by Anthony, of course. Perfect. I'm sure that's exactly what classified as. But all right, let's go to another New York football giant. This one I'm not as in on. So I believe it was Pete who put this in the doc. So I'm going to kick it to Pete before I kick it to Anthony. It is Mr. Wan'Dale Robinson. Played in 15 years, 60 receptions, 525 yards receiving, 1 touchdown. As we know, last year that Giants passing game was anemic at best. My whole bit is here, Pete, is after Malik Neighbors, obviously, it's just an island of misfit toys. If I had to pick a guy, probably be Jalen Hyatt. But I also feel like it's kind of Russian roulette with these guys. Anthony just made a face when I said Jalen Hyatt. I could have said any other receiver on that depth chart, and Anthony might have made the same face potentially. That's just goes to show you what this depth chart's been. But whatever. Like we said, somebody has to produce in this offense. So what are your thoughts on Wan'Dale Robinson, Pete?
Yeah, I mean, his best ball ADP is 166 right now. So you're getting him close to between rounds 13 and 15 right now. 45% of his games in 2023, he earned 6 targets. He was 4th in the NFL for target separation. So he can separate. He's a good athlete. And this is also coming off of a year removed from the ACL injury last year. Not a year removed. This was the first season with the ACL injury. So the fact that he was separating at 4th most or 4th best in the NFL, and generally they say ACLs take 2 years to really gain that explosiveness back. That's part of the reason why I'm in on him. He's the second receiving option on a team that, outside of Neighbors, I mean, yes, we're talking Singletary, but Singletary is going to be the guy that's a safety valve in the passing offense, but Neighbors is going to get all the focus. And Mike Kafka and this coaching staff, for better or for worse, I mean, this is a very creative coaching staff. They are smart. They're one of the more respected staffs in the league. They just coach a really bad team. I mean, Mike Kafka is a very well-respected offensive mind in the NFL. So I think that last year, watching some of their games, they didn't lack creativity. They just lacked playmakers. So they didn't really gain a ton of playmakers outside of Neighbors. They lost Barkley, but no Saquon Barkley. Malik Neighbors is going to draw a lot of attention, and I think Wan'Dale Robinson should benefit from it. I'm not really a huge Jalen Hyatt fan. He was supposed to be a decent prospect. He had some bad injuries during his senior year, which had him fall during the draft, but he just didn't really show me a ton last year. I've seen enough of the flashes with Wan'Dale that I'm willing to kind of take a bite of the apple in the Big Apple and take a chance on him. So I don't mind him at his current price.
Yeah, Anthony, before you go, I was just going to say we have the guys in our chat are having a good time with your with your missionary Devin Singletary take, and William Stevenson said, if Singletary is the boring missionary of RBs, what is Breece Hall? To which I would say that's a little bit of Huck Tua, if I had to say.
All right,
Breece Hall action, take that,
reverse cowgirl. I don't know.
Oh yeah, all right. That's more like Christian McCaffrey for me. But at that point, we're all just having a great time. But Anthony, what says you as you smile from ear to ear with all the fun talk? What do you say about Wan'Dale Robinson?
Let's try to get serious. Talk about football.
Yeah, let's get it back.
My head back straight. Now
we got it.
I like Wan'Dale Robinson, especially at cost. He's a high floor player, and I think if he can stay healthy going into his second year removed from the injury, he's going to be pretty productive. Now, no tight end. We don't know who the tight end is going to be. You can take your shots on Bellinger. You have the rookie coming out of Penn State. Waller's gone. Barkley's gone. Now, with Barkley gone, there's a lot of targets going with him. They're all not going to Devin Singletary, right? He's not going to get all of Barkley's targets. Wan'Dale Robinson in the slot could potentially be one of the biggest beneficiaries of Saquon Barkley. Wan'Dale last year was 11th at wide receiver in terms of slot snaps. 66.9% of the time he lined up in the slot. Now, another thing about Wan'Dale, which is pretty damn deceptive, if you ask me, he had 7 catches over 20 yards. So he's a little bit of a playmaker. And again, he was coming off the injury. Just imagine what he can do this year if Daniel Jones can stay healthy and play a little bit more competent football. And Pete brought up the creativity of Brian Dable and Kafka. This guy also had 9 rushing attempts for 87 yards and a touchdown. So, like, this almost reminds me of a poor man's Jaden Reed.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
I find that
I don't hate that. Yeah. No, I don't hate that actually.
Yeah. Jaden Reed actually was one of the had. I think I saw a stat today that said he was had one of the most rushing yards outside of Deebo Samuel in the NFL last year. I would assume Wan'Dale's pretty high up there too.
Wan'Dale could be one of those guys, and nobody's paying attention because he plays for the Giants.
Yeah. Well, again, someone's got to produce in this offense. While I prefer Jalen Hyatt, I do have
why?
Because again, it's also cost we're talking about here, Anthony. I'm not taking him in the first GD round. I'm taking him late, just rounding it out. I've got some shares of Wan'Dale in best ball too. It's a crapshoot. You're just throwing it again. The New York Football Giants, in terms of their pass catchers, with the exception of Malik Neighbors, obviously, will be throwing it against the wall and seeing if it sticks. That's what it's going to be for the New York Football Giants this year.
So, I mean, think about this, though. Wan'Dale had 45% of his games, he had 6 or more targets. And that was, I mean, granted, Tyrod Taylor was one of the better quarterbacks, but for the most part, it was Danny DeVito in there. And he was still garnering targets.
Is that his name, Danny?
Tommy.
I really don't know.
I would have paid good money to see Danny DeVito as a Giants quarterback of Taxi and Always Sunny in Philadelphia fame.
It was fun while he was there. It was a fun ride.
Yeah.
Like, this has got to be, before we end this horrific segment in the New York Giants,
sure.
If you look at their wide receiver depth chart right now, Neighbors, Slayton, Wan'Dale, Hyatt, Allen Robinson, Isaiah McKenzie, Hodgins, Gunner, I can't even say the last name, from New England, Miles Boykin, the converted, I think he's a converted tight end that Baltimore Ravens drafted. I mean, this is terrible.
That's like showing up to a barbecue with all alcohol-free beer. Like, what's going on? This is bad.
How bad is it for A-Rob that he's listed as a 5?
Yeah, the mighty have fallen. I'll always remember you, Alan, for that 1 year with the Jacksonville Jaguars. You torched the league. And
fantasy Twitter was chasing Allen Robinson every year since, burning everybody in his path.
That's right. There were no survivors. But yes.
By the way, Jalen Hyatt also he played 403.
With the shit now with the Jalen Hyatt.
No, I'm just saying he played.
Don't make me defend this guy. I don't want to.
Actually,
I'm just saying he played 403. He played 403 passing snaps and he did nothing with that. Like that's where I get upset too. Like, he was on the field.
Saving it for this.
He wasn't bad. I mean,
I'm not hating on him. I'm just saying he had opportunities.
I will say he's a big play guy. Maybe the issue wasn't Jalen Hyatt and more of it. He was 8th in yards per reception. He had 7 catches over 20 yards and 3 catches over 40 yards. Like, I get that, it wasn't great overall statistically, but he flashed a little bit.
He did, but he was on the field for 15 less snaps than Wan'Dale Robinson, who was coming off an ACL. But it wasn't a problem for Wan'Dale Robinson. I mean, he was getting targets. I'm not saying he blew up last year, but I mean, I don't know. I just think they were on the field for pretty much the same amount of snaps, and I can't. The only play I remember Jalen Hyatt doing last year was in the preseason game where he lost.
But here's the thing, maybe, and this doesn't, and I'm not discounting Wan'Dale because I like Wan'Dale this year, but maybe Wan'Dale saw more opportunities because the quarterbacks didn't have time. Where Jalen Hyatt, he's a big player. You need to take time. You need to take your 3-5 step drop and let a play develop. They couldn't let plays develop. So maybe, and again, I'm still on Wan'Dale.
No, that's fair.
But like maybe Hoff's going somewhere here.
How about that? Well,
Maybe.
I'll tell you, one place I will be going is probably to the bathroom soon because I'm going to throw up on myself if we keep talking about Giants pass catchers. So
we love arguing about mid players that no one gives a shit about.
That's our wheelhouse right there. That's how we roll. All right, so we will stay in the East Coast, but we will. And actually, I shouldn't even say this like as if it's a good thing that we're going to stop talking about the Giants because we're not going to talk about the New England Patriots. The next sleeper that I like was the guy I put in there was Hunter Henry. This is a guy that I think is, if you're somebody like, say, an Anthony Servino, who I always say on this show, and Anthony takes great pride in it, if you're someone who waits on the tight end position, Hunter Henry could be a name that could produce for you, that could put up some nice fantasy numbers. He finished as the tight end 18 last year. That was in 14 games played. He is a tight end 18 now going into the year too, as far as his ADP. He tied with 5 other tight ends last year for second with 6 receiving touchdowns. Among those tight ends, though, Hunter Henry had the fewest receptions with 42. Just a few receptions ahead of him was Mark Andrews, and we know how much time he missed during the year. So really the big concern here is Hunter Henry has to get the receptions up. I mean, 6 touchdowns, if you're talking about recreating 6 touchdowns, I don't think that is impossible, especially given the fact that while we talked about quarterback positions have come up a bit on this show and the effect that they have in the passing game, I have to imagine, and yes, I know there's a world where I could be wrong, but it can't get much worse than Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi last year. Again, I'll always say Mac Jones is really... he's probably better than what we saw in New England, but whatever. We saw what we saw there. It was a crime scene out there on a weekly basis. So, Hunter Henry will likely be working with Drake May. I feel more so like he's going to be the one who's going to start the majority of the season. I think they're just going to be calling for it right away. And what do we always say? A young quarterback's best friend is the tight end. And Hunter Henry is now a veteran here. I like him. I think he could produce. Now, is he probably better suited to be like a streaming option as opposed to, from wire to wire, you're starting him every single week? Maybe that's something to keep an eye on. But I like Hunter Henry this year. Again, if you're waiting on a position, I don't hate Hunter Henry. Anthony, what says you? I know we're going from one gross offense to another, so bear with me. But what would you say about Hunter Henry?
I like Hunter Henry. Whether it's Jacoby Brissett or Drake May, I expect the quarterback play overall to be better. And this is another guy in Hunter Henry who suffered from poor catchable target rate. He was 27th amongst tight ends in catchable target rate. That's really bad, especially at the tight end position. Only 75.8% of his targets were catchable, so 47 of 62. There wasn't a lot of good here, but the one thing that jumps out to me that Hunter Henry played in 14 games. In 5 of those weeks, he finished as a tight end 1 that week. He finished as a tight end 1, tight end 2, a tight end 4 twice, and a tight end 9. So when he pops, he pops. It's just a matter of, are we going to get more popping out of Hunter Henry? I like Brissett. I like Drake May. I think they're both going to be upgrades. I think look at this wide receiver room. Hunter Henry might lead this team in targets. I don't think that's crazy to say in a league where tight ends are ultra valuable and they're ultra involved in a passing attack. If you look at this wide receiver room full of rookies and bust first round picks and Juju Smith-Schuster and KJ Osborne, is it crazy to say that this guy can be number 1 or number 2 on his own team in targets? And there's a history here. Usually if a tight end is number 1 or number 2 on his team in targets, they're ultra productive in fantasy. So this is a pretty nice sleeper pick at the tight end position that I don't mind taking. And by the way, they signed him to a 3-year extension. They're happy with him in New England. They like what he's shown them since he's been here. They would not have awarded him an extension with a new regime if it wasn't for that.
Just to piggyback off of what you were saying before I kick it to Pete, talking about the targets. I mean, last year he had an 11% target share, which was granted, you had 15% for Demario Douglas. Then there was 10% for both Kendrick Bourne and Devontae Parker. So ahead by 8%, but still, he was, there you go. So the target share has already been there. The offense maybe can be better with a new quarterback here or two different quarterbacks. Pete, what says you? Are you with us here on Hunter Henry, or are you on the outside looking in?
I am. I like Hunter Henry. Crazy as it is to say, quarterback upgrade, right? That's the first thing I'll say. Whether if it's Jacoby Brissett, which we all assume is going to at least start this season as the QB1, that's a quarterback upgrade from what he had last year. Hunter Henry had a top 12 finish 5 times last season. He had 4 finishes in the top 5. He was 3rd on the team for targets and catches, and he led the team in touchdowns, right? And I apologize. I don't know if I might be doubling up on some of those stats and talking points from you guys, but
better not be.
But this is a weak wide receiver room, which we already talked about. I actually had somebody say to me, and there's some nerds out there who want to say that the tight end narrative being a rookie quarterback's best friend is false, and it's not true. I don't know. As a guy who played football, and I love football, right? And I don't claim to know more than the average person, but I would say a tight end is a safety blanket. If Drake May starts more games than we expect, I easily could see Hunter Henry doing what he did last year, and all he needs to do is do what he did last year. I mean, this is Hunter Henry's probably not going to be your number 1 tight end, right? You're probably going to have somebody else, unless you're going with Hunter Henry and maybe another guy in the back end out there, but you're probably not in a good spot either way. You're probably streaming, right? But I mean, this guy, like I said, gave you 4 top 5 finishes last year. He finished in the top 12 5 times. I mean, this is a guy who has a high floor. We know he's going to score touchdowns. And that's just what he does. And he is going to be the safety blanket. Jacoby Brissett likes to throw the football to the tight end. When he was in Cleveland, he did get the ball to David Njoku. Now, he didn't do it like Joe Flacco did, but he does like the tight end position as well. And so I think Hunter Henry is a nice value that I keep getting sniped on anytime I do a best ball draft. I don't have many shares of him, but every time I'm looking to hit that button, he seems to go right in front of me. So,
and by the way, we do have our own Steve D'Angelo in the chat calling out Cuban Pete. So there you go.
I did buy some cigars for vacation. So Anthony, I get a little jealous when Anthony smokes the vape a little bit on the show. It makes me want to, get a little nicotine in me. But one tidbit, I actually got so drunk for my Super Bowl party this year that in this office I drank Everclear, which I don't know how my niece's my fiance's niece gave us a bottle of homemade Everclear with something else in it, and I didn't know it was Everclear.
A tablecloth.
Well, me and my buddies finished a bottle of rum, and then we were drinking Everclear. I didn't even know it was Everclear until the next day because I just didn't. I thought it was vodka. I didn't know what she gave us, and I was smoking cigars in my office, and I think I passed out and woke up for like the last drive of the game. So, small tidbit. I don't think I'll be smoking any cigars in this office again anytime soon, but I will on vacation.
A, I think we should hang out sometime. B, yeah. I mean, I wish I was awake for the whole game. I wish I fell asleep before the last drive. So yeah. So there's that. That went well. Yeah, there wasn't a lot of cuss words and broken beaded bracelets thrown around the apartment or anything. I'm still finding those lying around on the floor. Good times.
Well, maybe if your
but
tight end showed up like he said he would.
Oh,
Here we go with this shit now.
Let's not go there.
Actually, Anthony, it's good for Anthony because it's the only source of joy that Anthony has in this world is talking about George Kittle in the Super Bowl.
He started with his fucking shirt. I had no problem with
see.
George Kittle until that
he
shirt.
hurt you. All right. So wait a minute. Wait, actually, fine. I'll play along here. So the 3 touchdowns in the game, that didn't bother you. That was whatever. But the shirt,
The
that
shirt
was
bothered me. The fucking shirt, yes.
Too bad.
He's a good player, of course. Like players do these things, but wearing the shirt.
So yeah, you literally just said players do this thing. So why can't he do it?
No,
What's
I'm talking about
the
the touchdowns, scoring. That's part of the game.
Oh,
I can stomach the game.
Okay.
The shirt? Come on. And that was Gary Plummer's idea anyway. He fucking stole it. He can't even be original.
He gave him a shout out for that.
Let's move on.
Look, you're just too fucking sensitive about, listen, whatever. Try and beat the Niners this year. And then, maybe that'll make you feel better. There you go. Or maybe make your own t-shirt that says, that says
I will make a t-shirt.
There you go. Do it. Have fun with it. That's it.
Oh, boy.
I hope it shows up too small. Anyway, let's move on before things get nasty. All right. So yeah, Everclear to end the night. Yikes. Yeah, I know, Jason. I said the same thing, especially after he said, "Oh, we drank Apollo rum, and then we decided to shift over to Everclear." What the fuck is going on over there?
It was fucking bad, man.
That is bad. Yes.
Bad.
Yes, that's bad. Okay. Speaking of bad, this is another player that was put in the dock. I did not like this. Anthony initially put a question.
Let's answer that. Let's answer our Facebook question before we move on.
Lewis says, how do you rank the top 5 rookie running backs? I could take a swing at it first unless you wanted to, Anthony.
Either one.
I said Steve. I meant to say Hoff. I think I'll just say if we're talking this season for me, it's going to be Jonathan Brooks as the number 1. Trey Benson as the number 2. Kamani Vidal as the number 3. Marshawn Lloyd as the number 4. And then the number 5 is kind of a toss-up for me between Braylon Allen and Tyron Tracy. I think both guys could see time if Breece Hall, has an injury, or if they do what the Packers did in that offense and they actually now have a good number 2 running back and they take a little off of Breece Hall's workload. He may have some impact. Probably not weekly start impact, but maybe best ball. And Tyron Tracy, I think, truly has an opportunity to steal that job. So that would be my 5. What about you guys?
I mean, that was actually like literally where I was pretty much leaning. Obviously Jonathan Brooks is the top. But yeah. So, Anthony, what about you?
Mine is Brooks, Quorum, Ray Davis, Trey Benson, and Kamani Vidal. Yeah. I got to put Ray Davis in there. I just
talk about it a little later.
There's a big path to him eating into, Josh Allen's potential goal line work.
Well, we're just talking about it now. This is one of our sleepers, Anthony. So I'm saying, so go ahead and just lead into it. I'll just say that's another one of our sleepers. So this question actually helps to bring that out. So Anthony, go ahead. Feel free to talk a little bit about Ray Davis in that Buffalo Bills backfield.
Yeah, so Davis is really turning into one of my all-in guys at his current cost. If you look at I like to scale it back to previous years. If you look what Buffalo has tried to do, they have tried to bring in a short yardage in between the tackles running back. They've tried it with Damian Harris. They tried it with Latavius Murray. And even when Harris got hurt, Latavius Murray in his 30s saw a decent number of carries. They even brought in Leonard Fournette at the end of last year. They don't want James Cook to take all of those carries. I think Cook is fine as a receiver out of the backfield. I just don't necessarily think that they trust him in short yardage situations. And we look at Josh Allen. I think he doubled his career high in rushing touchdowns last year. That's an outlier. Do they want, and Josh Allen's getting older, do they want him absorbing all of those hits that he's taking as a ball carrier? If they had a more competent running back, I think this guy's going to see work. Now, I'm not saying Ray Davis is a lock. We still need to see this guy play in training camp in the preseason, but I think he's going to get every opportunity to make some noise in his backfield. I just want to take it one step further. Is there enough work to go around? And I want to pull up what Latavius Murray did last year. Latavius Murray, 79 rushing attempts, 17 receptions, 31.9% snap share. Like he was on the field. Like it wasn't like this guy, like Latavius Murray. Would you expect a 34-year-old Latavius Murray to get that much work? And yes, that is a lot of work for a 34-year-old running back. When you have James Cook, if James Cook was your guy, why is he getting that much? And this is also an offense where Josh Allen is taking a lot of carries as well. Like I just think that the stars are relying, if Ray Davis can be competent and play better than Latavius Murray, I think we're going to get some decent fantasy output from him.
Yeah, and again, we have said this multiple times on the show, but it's with good reason. The point is also with Ray Davis is, like everybody else we're talking about, you're not spending a lot to get him. The draft capital is not. I mean, this is like a scratch off. This is it could hit great. So I actually, Anthony,
I wanted to scale one more thing here before you take it away. 2022 James Cook, right? He looked like the second coming. He averaged 5.8 yards per carry. He only had 91 carries. Last year, when he had 237, it dropped almost a full yard per carry. So you give this guy volume, all of a sudden, this over 5 yards per carry gem doesn't look like that gem anymore as a ball carrier. Still an excellent receiver.
Yeah.
But as a ball carrier, didn't look that good.
I got to be honest. When I saw this in the doc, I was like, I'm going to let him talk his what, I'm like, I wanted you to convince me. And I would actually say, you have done that. You have convinced me here. So there you go. I think I'm in. Pete, what about you? Did you have any other thoughts, or did you do you like what Anthony's selling here on Mr. Ray Davis?
I do. I think Anthony's point I think the goal line work is a huge factor for this offense. Latavius Murray was on the field a good bit last year, especially down at the red zone. They brought in Leonard Fournette, who didn't really see the field much, but there was I don't know. I mean, for me, I've never been a big James Cook fan, and so there was always this feeling for me that they just didn't really love the guy. I don't know why, but when it comes to just yards after contact last year, and this is running backs who had a minimum of 200 and around 265 to 275 rushing attempts. James Cook was 28th in the NFL for yards after contact. If you're gonna look for a guy to run the football down at the goal line, they're gonna get touched early, and you need a guy that can bang. And Ray Davis is a guy that can bang down at the goal line. He had 3.81 yards after contact per attempt last year in college football. That ranked 12th in the whole NCAA. So he's a guy that can be relied on at the goal line in the short yardage, and so I think he has a chance to steal some touchdowns. I'll definitely be throwing a little bit of money on Ray Davis for sure when it comes to just anytime touchdown scorers this season. Just out of curiosity, see if I get some value on that. But yeah, I mean, in all honesty, he's a guy I wouldn't really mind taking a shot on as well. Just getting some exposure. These guys, when we talk late round, Ray Davis isn't a guy I need to have, but he's a guy that I want to have. I want to have a little bit of exposure to him. And so I definitely will and continue to add him to my portfolio at the end of drafts. And I like where he's going at his cost. So I'm definitely willing to take another bite of the apple on Ray Davis.
Yeah, there you go. So there you go. And that question was already, the player was already in our doc, but it just goes to show you that a good question brings out a good conversation, which is why we tell you Join us in these live chats. We will answer your questions. We'll have a good time with your comments. Even if you're talking about who the F is drinking this low budget crap, that's Pete. That's who. That's who's drinking the low budget crap. But he likes it. It
What's
works.
low budget crap? Never,
He was
never.
referring to the Everclear.
You saw by the Everclear. If you play Super Mario backwards, it's a story about a guy who leaves his wife and his life gets progressively easier. Something to think about for all the married people or for those who make it married much longer.
This is like a fortune cookie, you know.
Wait,
without saying any more, it's kind
where does Jamie get all these tidbits?
I don't know, but I like Uncle Jamie.
True.
I'm a big fan of Uncle Jamie. That's it.
Because I'm going to tell this to my wife. She might stab me.
Well, and maybe don't tell her that. I mean, there is that, you know.
Well, and in terms of cheap shit, I don't know if Will is still here, but I meant to grab this comment early. He said, "I'm drinking some Trogs Graffiti, which if you're from PA, it's a pretty solid IPA. They got some good stuff. I don't know, Hoff, have you drank Trogs before? Or?
I have not actually. That is new to me.
They have a brewery down by Hershey, I believe, in Pennsylvania. But if you like IPAs, they got some really good beers. So that is not cheap. I will tell you that. IPAs are expensive. And it was a gift. And honest to God, I didn't even know it was Everclear until I called them the next day and I asked what the hell was that. And they said,
what kind of vodka was that?
And they said it was Everclear. So, yeah, I don't recommend drinking Everclear after finishing a bottle of them. So
yeah, don't.
And a couple of beers too. Next to
that would be an ill-advised move. The last player. Yeah, the last player we'll talk about, and I was saying before we answer the Facebook question, Anthony, I was going to kick this to you because you put it in the doc, but when you put these players in the doc, you put a question mark there. So I didn't know if you were leaving that up to we could have a discussion.
Yeah.
Does a player belong in there or how much you believe in them? But it's tight end for the Seattle Seahawks, Mr. Noah Fant, currently sitting as the tight end 23. I do love that graphic. It is very sharp.
Yeah, that's really sharp.
8% of the Seahawks targets last year, no touchdowns. I'm more than positive. And by the way, this just for shits and giggles, this isn't like I'm a Niner fan, therefore I don't like the tight end for the Seahawks because I love DK Metcalf. I do think Geno Smith could have a bounce back with the new offensive coordinator in town. I just don't see how Noah Fant fits into here. Like we talked about Hunter Henry earlier. I would much rather have a Hunter Henry than a Noah Fant. But, Anthony, like I always say, you are the tight end streaming whisperer. So you tell me, why Noah Fant?
Noah Fant has been bogged down in Seattle by a crowded tight end room. Guys like Colby Parkinson and Will Dissly are no longer there. And you know, Parkinson especially – he played 470 snaps last year to Fant's 543. Kind of kept him off the field on downs where they played, like 11 type personnel. Or 12 personnel. I'm mixing that up. But regardless, Noah Fant, if you go back into his career, he has two relatively fantasy productive seasons in 2020 and 2021. He was a tight end 11 and tight end 12 in fantasy points per game. He saw at least 90 targets, 62 receptions, 670 yards, and 3 touchdowns in both of those seasons. So we know this guy can do it. Coming out of college, he actually comped out to your boy George Kittle and workout metrics, 98, 97 percentile across the board. He's a talented player. What I like is they cleared out the tight end room, and this is no longer going to be the Pete Carroll type of offensive system and defense. Let's grind it out. Let's play defense and win these games ugly. They're bringing in Ryan Grubb. Ryan Grubb threw the hell out of the football in Washington, and I think there's enough there in terms of offensive talent to play a similar system and throw the football. And who's to say Noah Fant can't get back into it? I feel like this is a dart throw, but if you are pairing up tight ends late, why not take a shot at Noah Fant? Like I said, it's not like we're taking a shot at a guy who's never done it before. Go back a few years ago, he was a top 12 fantasy tight end in fantasy points per game. We know he can do it. I just don't think it's impossible.
It's not impossible. It's just,
I mean, just third yards per target, third yards per reception last year, second in target separation. He's a good pass catching tight end. He's good. He just needs the opportunity.
Do you want me to take it off? Because I definitely have some decent. I feel like I have a decent perspective. So obviously, Broncos fan here. Well, look, obviously I'm a Broncos fan here, and Noah Fant, like his 40 time was off the charts. I mean, one of the fastest 40 times we've ever seen for a tight end. So the athletic ability is there. To Anthony's point, Grubb, and I'm not really big on the coach speak, but if you are, he did come out and say that he's not going to have Noah Fant in many situations where he's going to block. He said, he's going to use Pharaoh Brown for that to block. Because they want to get Fant out in the passing game. And an interesting stat, and I don't know what it was for 2023, but at least heading into 2023, so for 2022, Geno Smith was 8th in the NFL for targeting the tight end position at 23.8% with the Seahawks in 2022. So he likes the tight end position. They signed Noah Fant to a 2-year extension, give him $11.5 million guarantee, which is a decent amount for 2 years. And like Anthony said, Will Dissly's gone. Colby Parkinson is gone as well.
By the way, 57 vacated targets between the two. Parkinson at 34, Dissly at 22.
And this is going to be a pretty surprising stat to hear, but he trails only Travis Kelce, George Kittle, and Dallas Goedert in yards per target over the last 2 seasons. So he's 4th in yards per target for the last, for the last 2 seasons. He's only 26 years old. Like, this is a guy who, unfortunately, his time in Denver, like many pass catchers, just didn't work out because, they're a disaster, right? But he has the talent. It's never really been about the talent for him. And he's going to be in a system, like Anthony said, they're going to throw the football a lot more. And I think Geno Smith is going to be a lot better this year. He was dealing with injuries all of last season. So this is an offense who's gonna throw the ball. I would say they're probably going to be top 15 in passing attempts, which for Seattle is unheard of. I really would bet that they're probably in the top 15. And those vacated targets that Anthony talks about, Pharaoh Brown is not getting those targets. He's a blocking tight end, so those should go to Noah Fant. Not all of them, maybe, but that plus an increase in the amount of attempts and a quarterback that likes to throw to the tight end position. I think Noah Fant's a decent guy to grab as well. If you're going to punt the position or you're not getting one of the elite guys, he's definitely somebody I would target to pair up with, maybe a guy like Hunter Henry. So.
And while they let those other 2 tight ends go, they extended Fant on a 2-year, $21 million deal.
Yeah, and they gave him $11.5 million guarantee. Yeah. What I was saying too.
Maybe I need to do some more soul searching on this. This is the beauty of being.
I've never been a Fant guy either. I'm shocking myself here.
But this is the beauty, I will say, of not only being on this show and being in this room. It's the beauty of if you guys are watching or if you guys are listening, you could have your perspective changed or maybe your eyes opened a little bit. So I'm still not completely there, but I am going to be doing a little more investigating on Noah Fant. See what I find. See what I like.
So we had two. So we had a question in here, and then we have 2 comments. I'll get to the Noah Fant question, and then I want to address the comment because I'm sure you guys have in terms of Greg. Jamie said, "Would you rather take Kmet earlier or get Fant later?" I'm on the Fant side. Yeah, I'm out on Cole Kmet this year. I know people like him, but too many mouths to feed in this offense, and I am kind of going against my point of tight end's the best friend for a rookie quarterback, but Gerald Everett is a player that played in this system with the current OC who comes from Seattle. So there's a relationship there. No, I'm just saying, I'm not saying that that's the end all be all, but there's a lot of mouths to feed. And honestly, Cole Kmet didn't have competition. Gerald Everett's an athletic player. He's not going to light the world on fire. I'm not going out and drafting Gerald Everett, but he's going to cut into his time, I believe, as well. They brought him in for a reason. You could huff all you want, but the OC had Gerald Everett on.
I am not a Cole Kmet guy. This isn't. I'm not making a sigh because of Cole. But they also paid Kmet 4-year, $50 million. I think. I don't think
Dawson Knox. You can make the same argument, couldn't you?
I guess I just don't. I don't think either one of those. I don't think the tight end position in Chicago is valuable.
No, I'm not. That's why I said I wouldn't draft Gerald Everett.
I would just quickly pop in and just say I don't mind Cole Kmet as, for example, my second tight end in best ball.
Sure,
I'll take him there. No, I'm saying like because I've done that. I've drafted because Kmet will give you that game or two where he'll pop. And I know there's more mouths to feed, and there's this, and that's a very real thing. That's why if it was a redraft league, if I could only pick those two, I probably would go Noah Fant. But best ball, I wouldn't mind taking a stab at Cole Kmet as, say, my second tight end.
And it comes down to cost too. Fant's dirt cheap. You got to pay somewhat of a decent premium for Kmet, I believe. So yeah,
Kmet was a little bit ahead of Hunter Henry as far as the tight end ranks.
Yeah, so. There's too many guys there.
Well, okay. Well, here's another thing here, and this is from a buddy Clueless on Twitter. So thanks for helping him, man. He said, "Would you?" Well, he said he would draft Brock Bowers 100%. I don't know. Would you draft Bowers over Kmet? I mean,
no.
Yeah, I would.
I would.
Yeah.
Is there anybody else I get to choose from? I'm completely out on Bowers.
If you want to do a pizza bet, I'll do a pizza bet between Bowers and Cole Kmet, if you're interested.
Bowers. Let's see what's going on. Bowers.
I'll take Bowers.
Kmet.
You'll take Kmet. I'll even give you half point.
I'll take. I would take Dalton Schultz or Dallas Goedert over either one of them.
Okay, well, that's not what I asked you.
That's not the bet.
I'm not taking that shitty bet.
Well, it's a shitty bet. That's one of these shitty kids sitting there for dinner right here on the show graphic. All right, whatever. That's
all right.
Whatever.
Just
Coward.
One more thing here. You guys think it over. Maybe you'll make the bet and we can at least announce that.
No, he won't.
Settled on something. But Greg comes in here, and I definitely want your guys' perspective. He said, once a player burns me a few times, I'm out. I mean, what's your perspective? Is there a guy? How about phrase it like this? Is there a guy out there that no matter what is just undraftable for you based on how many times he's burned you in the past?
I don't know if it's more so based on how many times he's burned me, because I can't think of a particular player off the top of my head. To me, it's more so if there's a situation that I really don't want to deal with, that I really don't like, I will avoid that player at all costs. William, what happened to the shot bet? The shot bet was shot to shit. So we don't do that no more. I'll do shots. I'll do shots with you on air, William. We could do that. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, we used to have the old shot bet. We don't do those anymore. We scaled it back a little more PG in terms of the pizza, even though I drop F-bombs on the show. But yeah, that's what happened there. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
But there's not a player who's burned me where I said I'm never drafting him again. At least not that I could think of off the top of my head.
Okay, Anthony.
Probably not, because I'll draft anybody if their situation changes. And normally, if I'm not in love with it, like people felt burned by DJ Moore. Well, like I didn't draft a lot of DJ Moore in Carolina because I did not love that situation. Same thing with Drake London. I have maybe in Dynasty I have a few shares, but I never drafted Drake London in redraft. I never saw a reason to until now. So I try not to go. And I think a lot of it comes from how people, they plant their flags on rookies. Yeah. And I did all this film study, and I don't care if his quarterback's dog shit. He's going to overcome, and they draft him year after year after year, and it doesn't work. And then once they find a good situation like DJ Moore last year, they're completely out. I don't plant flags. I change as the narrative changes. Like this year, I never had Kyle Pitts, but that's what I'm drafting a hell of a lot of Kyle Pitts this year. Why? Because he has a quarterback and an offensive coordinator I can buy into.
There you go.
So, yeah, I don't really have those players that I feel like burned me, because I try to learn from my lessons instead of planting a flag.
Yeah, I think the Dynasty community and look, all three of us are.
Oh, everybody players. In fucking Dynasty Twitter thinks they're better than NFL scouts. It's nuts.
Yeah, Dynasty Twitter is a very
Oh,
They
I
like
watched
AJ,
this
they plant their
10-minute video on
flag.
YouTube, so
Yeah, and look, hey, look, we all push content, right? I mean, like I like Dynasty, I like playing it, but I live for redrafts, right? I get Dynasty's cool and all, it's fun, it's kind of something to pass the time in the off season, and it's just cool. But in general, I think guys in Dynasty, there's a lot of sunk cost, and guys don't want to take their heels out of the ground on a player that they drafted high because they like them as a rookie. And then take Jared Judy, for example, right? Greg just said it, Clueless just said it. Greg said Jared Judy is an example. Clueless says he's over 50% with Jared Judy as well. Jared Judy is going on year 5, I think, right now, and he is not produced at all for fantasy football. You know, if you're looking at him saying maybe he changes, yeah, maybe, but I try to look at guys at a clean slate. I'll give Najee Harris I think Najee Harris is a perfect example, and so is Drake London, right? Like, Najee Harris is a guy who people drafted in the first round, and now people are completely avoiding him this year when he got an OC upgrade, they got a quarterback upgrade, and they got an massive offensive line upgrade. But guys don't want to draft him because they're upset because they drafted him high in years past and he burned them, right? And so, and Drake London's a perfect example as well. If you're and Kyle Pitts, I've never owned Kyle Pitts in a single league ever. This is the first year I have tons of shares of Kyle Pitts because I'm not naive enough to know that, like, I understand situation. Like Anthony said, they got an upgrade. They got a quarterback who loves to throw the football to the tight end. Like, Kyle Pitts is athletic. Look what he did his first year. Like, he burned a lot of people in the last few years. So guys are just out on Kyle Pitts. You know, that just leaves Kyle Pitts for the rest of us who really like him and will take him at a cheaper cost because he's not getting drafted as high and not getting pushed up because guys want to avoid him for whatever reason. So that's all I really have to say on that.
Like, now, are there players that I'm just kind of out on, like Terry McLaurin? Like, I get his situation changed, but like when if it comes time to draft Terry McLaurin, I'm kind of like 1 foot out the door already. Like, it's just because he's been around a little bit longer, and it's just hard for me to stomach that pick. Not because he burned me, not necessarily, but like I have a bad taste in my mouth from the Washington Commanders.
Yeah, and
Sure.
Terry, I think, is a frustrating guy who, like, doesn't get into the end zone much. So it hasn't over his years. So, like, yeah, the volume's there. Terry McLaurin's been over 1,000 yards in the last 4 years. He's one of the only receivers to do it in the NFL, but it hasn't produced for fantasy for us. So Terry McLaurin's interesting because we talked about him on Monday, but you got to assume that the quality of targets gets better for Terry McLaurin.
And that's kind of my issue with Bowers this year. I think people are blinded. They see last year, they see Kincaid, they see Laporta, and they're like, "Oh, the tight ends! Look, these 2 rookie tight ends, they're coming up in fantasy." And now Brock Bowers, he's a second coming. He's generational. People, he went to the Raiders. He went to a team with Devontae Adams, who commands $170 targets.
Yeah, I mean,
he has 2 shit quarterbacks. Jacoby Myers was another possession receiver. And oh, by the way, this is a run-first offense. Like, it just doesn't make sense to draft Brock Bowers.
All right. I think there's a difference, though, between you saying people are saying, which I'm not saying people aren't saying that before you're taken aback. There are people that do act like, you know, Brock Bowers is this generational thing. I don't think it's a generational thing, but I also think that even with Devontae Adams wanting the targets, even with the quarterback situation, we mentioned other quarterback situations where we said we still like this player to produce. So we're asking Brock Bowers, like, if anybody thinks Brock Bowers is going to be a top 5 tight end this year, then you're on your ass drunk.
If you literally type in Brock Bowers generational on Twitter, not Twitter, on Google, that's all it is. Like, there's articles, there's content, and I think people love using the word generational. That's like a buzzword in fantasy football.
Right.
Everybody's fucking generational.
People are overly dramatic. People want to use those big words to really grab the attention of people. Brock Bowers is
running back.
Dynasty.
He's not a generational guy, but he's still going to be good, Anthony.
I love
you
all
can't go ahead and
say,
but you're kind of doing, like, since people call him generational, now you're going out of your way to trash the shit out of him and be like,
How about he's a stud, though. I mean, forget what Anthony has to say. I mean, he is a stud.
Go ahead, Anthony.
No,
Tell
I'm
me-
just thinking of all the
Tell me
fantasy
to get off
Twitter
your fucking porch.
buzzwords,
Go ahead.
like propaganda, like the people who tweet out the word propaganda. I have quote unquote player propaganda. What the fuck are you talking about? Like, do you
Anthony's
even know how to
hungry.
spell the word? But you're
This
using that in a
is-
tweet about fantasy football.
This is the part of the show
Like,
where
this
Anthony's
isn't
hungry.
World War fucking II propaganda.
All right. Okay. Are you done yet?
No,
You
it
good?
pisses me off.
All right, keep going then. Oh wait.
No, I'm not. All right, go on. It pisses me off. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
no, you are
All the
done now.
Twitter bullshit buzzwords piss me off.
Well, yeah,
Because
I
the
think you're
people
referring
using
to
them,
say-
half of them don't have a clue how to spell them.
Well, I think you're also referring to just specific people that want the
Maybe.
engagement and are just like every
Propaganda.
single player in Dynasty. They want to be like, this guy's breaking out. Like, granted, we use buzzwords too, right? But like some people love everybody. Like, you know, you can never be wrong on anybody when you're kind of half in, half out, or like you're providing so much. Like, you gotta take a stand at some point. And I think I think the Dynasty community is driving the Brock Bowers bus. Like, people love him. They got him, and we're like, people's heads are not on redraft because we're still far enough out that guys are just like, there'll be more clarity once we get to closer to August, right? And guys start to get out of, like, sometimes you're in Dynasty brain, right? I feel like because we're in the off season, and maybe that's partially why, but you know, Clueless doesn't agree with you, Anthony. He said, I'm not listening to Twitter, I'm listening to his team. So he does not agree with you. But
the other thing, by the way, all this Brock Bowers generational yada
I go
yada.
on my little tangents because
we go with
people
this
on
now.
Twitter piss me off. Has nothing
I
to do
know
with
that.
anybody
I
in
know
your
that.
team. That's why I go on these fucking
All right, well,
tangents.
can I ask a fucking question,
That
please?
app pisses me off.
No shit. Okay. Anyway, for all the Brock Bowers hype that is offending Anthony to no end, I will just say, though, in defense of Brock Bowers, I don't think his ADP, at least as of now, we'll see how it develops. Kind of like Pete was talking about how we're still kind of in dynasty mode. People will start drafting, redraft at some point. His ADP for his rookie year can't be where it was for Kyle Pitts in his rookie year. And that was another situation where the quarterback wasn't great, right?
That's fair. And he was
So-
probably a better prospect than Kyle Pitts was coming out of college. To be
So
fair,
I'm just saying, for the people that are using those words, whatever, the generational bits and this and that, just think in your own head. Just have an actual thought. And no, he's not going to be generational, but you're also going to get people then like Anthony who hate that people that say generational. So then they want to bring the guy down. Maybe he'll be somewhere in the middle. Is basically what I'm saying.
he's going to be good. He's going to be good.
In year one?
We could say that. I don't know.
Again, by the way,
maybe
we
not,
talked about this
don't
bet
know.
earlier. You're so passionate about this. We talked about Brock Bowers or Cole Kmet, and you're
Because
so passionate about
you're
this.
giving me
But he
two
won't-
players I don't like.
but he
You're
won't-
acting like I'm in on one.
All right, so give
Throw a
us
set.
a player
Throw a
around,
set, make the
give
bet.
give us a player around Brock Bowers.
God
Let's
damn it.
let's
But
do
how
this.
come can it be a player I'm
Give
into?
me a player around
Yeah.
Brock Bowers.
Can it be a
Around
player I'm
his-
buying into?
All right, continue to
No,
look.
Anthony.
What I want to say, if
You're like trying to
if you
offer me
like-
black licorice and black licorice. I don't want
Jesus
either of
Christ.
the black
Anthony,
licorice.
Anthony,
If
for
you
the last
like-
time, Anthony, stop speaking. Look at the tight end list.
I'm
Pick a
fucking
tight
looking
end
at
you
him.
like around
Well,
Brock Bowers,
let him look.
and then we'll make a bet. Pick
If
a
you
guy
like-
you like around
I
Brock
already
Bowers.
said earlier, if you listen, Dallas Goedert or Dalton Schultz.
I think Dallas Goedert's a good one. Dallas Goedert.
I'll do Dallas Goedert. There you go. We got a pizza bet.
Fine.
Is it
Fine.
points per game or is it fantasy
I
finish?
said those two players earlier.
Well, what is it though? Is it fantasy finish or we need to make sure that's clear.
I'll do fantasy finish half point.
Half point PPR. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Half point.
All right.
So the last thing I wanted to say, well, and if you guys like arguing, if you want to see Anthony mad, if you want to give us your takes, eventually we're trying to figure out a way of how we're going to get guys, the fans, the people that listen, get them on the show, whether it's a call-in line or we send a link out and we bring you guys on. So that is coming in the future. If you guys are interested in that, we'd love to hear some feedback on it as well. But we would also love to have you guys come in and give us your takes and have Anthony yell at you and kick you off the show, and he'll be like the Mike Francesa of the face-off. But all jokes aside, that's something he might yell at you. All jokes aside, we appreciate you guys sticking with us, and if you guys are interested, that's something that we're trying to figure out the logistics of bringing guys in on that. Jamie said, final thought of the night: try saying "good I might" without sounding Australian.
Good I might. How's that? Did that work for you? Need to upscale the bet from pizza bet to pizza bet dressed as a Ninja Turtle. Count me as interested, Greg. We will talk about that off air.
Okay.
Yeah. Talk about that. It's gonna be a bitch when I gotta hop on the Long Island Railroad and then hop on Jersey Transit just to hand Anthony a pizza while wearing a turtle outfit, but maybe.
If you don't get arrested first by Port Authority.
Here we go. Yes, but I think that will do it for today's show. Yes, there's the pizza party. I'll just tell everybody, if you want to watch all the fun graphics we have, if you want to see, the fancy shirts that Pete wears, if you want to see Anthony in his tank tops, or if you want to see my laser background, head to YouTube, search FF Face Off. Like, subscribe, do all those things. Hit the bell icon to be notified every single time that we go live. We're going to be ramping up shows more and more and more as the season gets going. Also, stick with fffaceoff.com for all your fantasy football, NFL, and sports betting needs. But that is going to do it for today. So until next time, stay thirsty, be kind to one another. Brock Bowers is not generational, but he'll still be good. And we'll catch you on the flip side. Cheers.